this package is also a DVD with 900 survival and off-grid living documents and the offline home canning how to do everything website all on the DVD. So when you're growing all that food, you know how to can it, store it, preserve it, etc. with all these documents. So thank you for tuning in to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. I hope that you will pick up this package and start learning to be free. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, where information never sleeps and freedom is one seed that needs to be planted.
What we do in life, it goes in eternity.
It's good morning from London from me, and good morning to you guys over in America and anyone obviously all over the world who may be listening. It's a rainy day in London this morning, quite grey. I'm completely tired. My son was sick last night at 3 a.m. and I just got to sleep. I was just floating off, and he called me and got sick. And of course, as everyone knows, with a young child that soon after they've been sick, you can't get back to sleep because it's a case of worrying. Is it going to happen again? Are they okay? Is it a symptom of something that's more serious? And it's incredibly stressful. So I didn't get back to sleep then. I was just laying there with my heart kaboom, 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 really fast. And I just watched the hours turning around on the clock. So I didn't sleep. And of course went down this morning, and my son is wide awake and bouncy, and he's fine, which is great. I'm like a zombie completely. So I've got someone really exciting coming on the show today, Mr. Fritz Springmeier. Some of you will have heard of him. He's done some amazing books, not only on obviously the monarch mind control that we're all interested in, I'm interested in, but I don't want to make my show all about that. He has other books as well. His books are, oh God, they just go on and on. He's got one published in 1989, which is now out of print, called Ancient and Foreign Stokes. He's got a book about the Masons. He's got a book called Be Wise as Serpents. They Know Not What They Do. The formula, the Illuminati formula used to create an undetectable total mind control slave. That was in 1996. That's available. Another book called Ezekiel 6:3. Available. That's about spiritual warfare and the when and where of the Illuminati rituals. Another book called Deeper Insights, which is a sequel to the formula book. That's available. Another book on worldwide evil and misery in 2008. That's available from Mayra Publications, Mayra Publications. And he's also written self-published a 7-volume set of books on Christian subjects in the 70s and added one more to it in the 90s. The Christian books are not available. So that's fascinating. I want to talk about all of those books and talk about him and how he came awake. And I found Mr. Springmeier back in, oh gosh, must have been 7 or 8 years ago when I was Googling stuff on the aliens and E.T. and just Googling away, see who was saying what. And I came across the Area 51 stuff on Area 51, and a man called Fritz Springmeier who wrote some fantastic stuff, some fantastic stuff on Area 51. So I sought him out, and I found his email and emailed him. And then when Facebook came alive, or I became aware of Facebook, probably been going for ages before I realized it was there. Someone mentioned him, and I thought, I wonder if he's on Facebook. And there he was. He's on Facebook, everybody. And which was fascinating. So That was interesting. So I spoke to him over on Facebook, and so the next thing, I was on his Facebook, and a woman called Anna, who was one of his friends, said, "Oh, I'd like to read your book." And I just published In for the Kill by Random House, and it was out, and she got it and she read it, and then she came back to me and said, "Oh, I think that you've been mind controlled." And I thought, oh, I'd never heard of the term before, not at all. And I thought, oh, okay, she's one of these mad people. And but she was very beautiful and American, and so I thought, oh well, I'm going to really enjoy speaking to her. So I sort of carried on chatting to her about America, and she was a fascinating person and well educated. So we talked, but I thought, well, she's obviously a bit mad, this mind control, because there's no such thing. There's no such thing as that. I Googled it a bit, but again, it seemed all a bit far out, and it seemed like something, something that, it just seemed kind of quite, weird. I carried on speaking to her, and she had a group which was called Overcomers, and I don't believe it's on anymore, but she joined me in there, and I started to think, oh well, this might be the subject for a novel or something like that. So I stayed in the little group full of victims of MK Ultra and mind control, and I chatted to people there who were very nice, and I read Fritz Springmeier's book, the formula book, and I found it incredibly complex. It goes into the details of Alice in Wonderland programming, Wizard of Oz programming, and I thought, wow, this is just amazing, but it's made up. It's rubbish, but it's amazing rubbish. And I thought Fritz was obviously really clever and probably had slipped off the edge, the way geniuses can do. So I kept the book to one side, and I carried on in this group thinking, I'm going to write this novel about these people who believe they're mind controlled, and how mad it is. And I did feel guilty, because it felt like I was a fraud in the group, but I was observing the others. And the next thing, I was talking to a girl in the group called Louise, and I was talking about therapy that I'd had in the past. I I grew up in an orphanage which was run by Jesuits called the Crusades of Rescue. It's now changed its name to the Catholic Children's Society, and I was adopted at age 5 by some very strict Catholic people. My adoptive father's aunt was a nun, and my mother was an army brat, and they adopted me, and I had a very strict, horrible upbringing. It was, my father was sexually abusive. She beat me a lot and told me that I was evil. I grew up to become not fascinated by evil per se, but just interested in evil and what it was, because I'd been called evil because I was a bastard and illegitimate. I wanted to investigate people that had been called evil and find out if they were evil. I thought, well, maybe they're not evil. I don't think I'm evil. And it was kind of like a case of trying to prove myself right, that people that were called evil weren't evil. And it was kind of a mad mission, but it sucked up a lot of my time. I got to know the Moors murderer, Ian Brady, visited him 3 times in my early 20s, and wrote to him over a decade. So I got to know him, and of course the media was rather interested in that. So then I began my relationship with the British press, ended up becoming one of them when I joined the News of the World as a journalist. Later went on to the Mail and then the Sunday Times, again, studying evil with the Real IRA this time. So it set me on a certain career path. I did then write Searching for Daddy, which was published by Hodder and became a Sunday Times bestseller. So there I was with the sexual abuse. I did have flashbacks of really horrific sexual abuse, which I wrote about in Searching for Daddy, which involved more than one person. I knew my father took me to these places, but I didn't. I did suspect the Crusade of Rescue was somehow involved. I did think that they had put me with this adopted family purposely. It was just an instinct, but of course you can't prove something like that. But I remember phoning the Crusade of Rescue one day when I was getting details about my parents. They were incredibly secretive. They wouldn't give me my file, which I think, legally I should have been able to get my file. They wouldn't give me my file. They gave me a piece of paper with my mother, and I tracked her down. And then I think she did mention his name. His name was listed, but it wasn't on my birth certificate. A man called Tom Hogan. So I tracked her down. She was short with dark hair, dark eyes. I'm tall, blonde, with blue eyes. And I thought then, oh, my father has this colouring, and he has this. I think we've just been joined by Fritz, so I'm quite happy. But I just carry on the story since I'm in full swing. But then I want to get Fritz on before Skype crashes again, because it did this morning when we tried to bring him on. So I then tracked down my father. I was hoping I would meet this kind of Roger Moore lookalike, and I had great fantasies of looking into the eyes of a man that was very like me, and he was, again, short, very dark hair, very dark eyes. And I said to him, you can't be my father because look at me. And, he said, don't get hung up. Don't get hung up on eye color. But I did. And he was a very nice man, but I don't think he's my father. So then, interestingly, I was still in this group, Overcomers. And one time I was talking to a girl in there called Louise. And I was talking about having a block. And I'd done so much therapy. I'd even done EMDR. To get to everything inside my mind that might be stored, so I could be a good person and a good mother and the best mother I could be. I am a good mother, but I wanted to, just be the best person I could be. I wanted to find out, what exactly had gone on in my past, being an investigator. And I was talking to Louise one time, and I said, I have this block, and I'm sure there's something behind it. And I want, as an investigator, to get behind this block. I can see it as like, a block of wood in my mind when you go back to a certain level. And she said, well, try and picture it. I said, I can always picture it. It's like a kind of a screen. And she said, well, has it got anything on the screen? I said, yeah, Donald Duck. And she said, it's classic Donald Duck programming. And I remember feeling really odd and really upset, actually. And I thought, no, I haven't got anything to do with your group and all that madness. And I Googled Donald Duck programming, and of course, loads of stuff came up. And I was really quite horrified. And I went on from there to read Mr. Springmeier's book again. And all of a sudden it made more sense. And from there, I've gone to a journey of, discovering myself and what lies within. And we've got Mr. Springmeier with us, and hopefully he'll be able to stay with us. But technically, things have been quite difficult. So we're going to talk to him as soon as possible in case we crash again. Fritz, good morning, and thanks for staying up. It's 3 a.m. your time, I believe.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you. It's like amazing because I thought technically we'd been hacked into and you weren't going to be able to come on, but here you are.
I didn't give up.
Oh, yes. So what's your accent? Is that American? Where are you? Out in Oregon, is it?
Yes, I'm in the Portland, Oregon area, and my accent is American. I got most of my accent from my parents, who were both Kansans. That's in the Midwest.
Oh, right. Where did you get that name from? Because is that German, your name, Fritz Springmeier?
Yes,
Is it?
it is German, and my heritage on my dad's side is German. Also get some from the other side too.
Oh, excellent. And your parents, what did they do for a living out there in Kansas when you were born?
Well, my dad was an engineer, and he was an engineer of several varieties. I mean, he could do all kinds of things, but he ended up specializing as an ag engineer, as a water specialist. But as an ag engineer, he was hired by a number of different groups, and he made a career of going to third world countries to develop their agriculture. His goal was to make the world a better place, to make it self-sufficient in producing food. And he always instilled in me the concept that you should leave the world a better place than you found it. And he set out to save the world, and I think I was maybe a little bit inspired by his idealism, and I've tried to do the same in my own way.
Oh, excellent. And you have. I mean, your books are amazing. When did you first start getting involved in like the truth movement and sort of, the mind control? And, when did you go from an average man and turn into this, something special that you are today? When was the turning point? Were you a teenager, or what happened there?
Well, it's been stages. It's definitely been stages, so it's hard to pinpoint a specific time. I owe a lot of where I am today from many different people, from my forefathers to all of the people who have done things to help me along the way. And when I was in high school, I had teachers that recognized where I was at, and they were recommending to me different books to enlighten me, because they already saw that I had a bent that way. And so, they were when I was 11 years old, I had read Hitler's Mein Kampf, which I was told was heavy duty reading. And then this one teacher in particular was having me read books like Animal Farm and things like that. So, Brave New World, 1984, trying to educate me that way. So then the next point that really stands out as far as chronologically was during the Carter administration. I had an uncle on my mom's side, and I had my grandparents on my dad's side join the ag movement. And that was very significant because the farmers were unable to make any profits. They were just being put out of business. And they were asking themselves, why is it that all the other professions can, like if you're a carpenter or a plumber, you can set the price for what you want. But the farmers were simply told what they would get, and they were not being told prices that would keep them in business. They couldn't make it. And so they were trying to figure out who's running things. And when they started tracking things down, like my grandparents, they became aware of the Trilateral Commission, the Council of Foreign Relations, and the banksters. So, I got a heavy duty education clear back then in 1978. So then it's been a process. I didn't really get into the trauma-based mind control until I started working, trying to help people get out of the Illuminati. And then I was confronted with the fact that if I wanted to get them out, I was going to have to deal with their mind control. And then at that point, I realized how important the trauma-based mind control was in allowing the Illuminati, the powers that should not be, the network, this all these people the globalists that are controlling things and running all these events and agendas and false flags. I realized that really the major thing that allowed them to do so much was this trauma-based mind control. And I realized that I felt called to deal with it. And I realized after a little while why I had been called to do it is because what I had to go through to expose it was just absolutely incredible. And I realized essentially nobody would have done it. If it hadn't been me stepping up to the plate, I can't picture it, because I had to be willing to lose everything. I didn't lose my life, but I lost everything else. Lost my family, I lost my reputation, you name it. I lost my freedom. I had to be willing to just hang in there and just accept the punishment that came from challenging these people. And I can't picture anybody else willing to give up all their friends, have everybody turn against you, and many other things that I held precious. I can't picture anybody being willing to do that, but I hung in there. And there's actually a few people that are friends on Facebook that come to me for advice, and they're trying to help victims of trauma-based mind control. And there are a few people out there that are doing what I did that can actually relate to me. But I still catch a lot of, slander, people making up lies. It never stops, So, it would stop, I suppose, if I just gave up and walked away from all of this.
How do you think, say from my own experience, just to be selfish, just for a few moments, how do you think, hearing my experience and what happened to me, how does one know for sure whether one has been tampered with or not? Because looking back on my life, I, had when I became a journalist, I worked on Fleet Street, I had a love affair with the head of the real IRA. I engineered the phone hacking by introducing them to the MI6 guy who brought in hacking, and of course now the British press have been shut down to a certain extent. Were these missions for me? I mean, how do I know that I've been, or I'm not just a bit of a schmuck? I mean, how does one work that out?
Well, there's a lot of little clues, but they're not easy. Now, I worked really hard to get Cisco. Cisco is just a name she gave herself. That's not her legal name, but it works just fine. I worked really hard for years to get Cisco free of the mind control, and eventually pretty well succeeded. We got down to the lower levels where we were actually her Illuminati programming altars were free, and when we got that loosened up or free, we could go places to conferences, and we'd be sitting there and somebody would be like across from the room, and she could say, "See that person over there? This altar is up, this program is running." And she could tell from all the minute clues everything that was going on with that person. I tell you, if you're a programmer, you can tell these things, but they're clues. But when I've said some of the clues to people, they don't even seem like they're clues. So, it's hard to, but, if you see someone who's got premature sexual development, or let's say they've got compulsive behaviors, excuse me, let's say they got abused as a child, or you see someone that has practically no trust in other people, or if you're, or like for yourself, if you were to go to your closet and you would find clothes that you can't figure out, where did these come from? or let's say you've got irrational anger, or panic attacks, or if you've got these fixations, like let's say you love Star Wars, and you collect all these Star Wars stuff, or you think that you were abducted by a UFO. This one guy, he was praising the aliens that abducted him, but then when I got into his alien abduction experience, he was sexually molested by these aliens repeatedly, and when you get sexually molested by so-called aliens, this is mind control, that you would think that these people were advanced and more civilized when you think positive things of your abusers. So anyway, if you can't remember your childhood, or you have unexplained things in your personal life, or you're getting these weird visions, or you have voices in your head, blackouts, all of these things are little clues. And when you start putting several of these clues together, I don't know if you saw the sequel to the Formula book. I just got in on the tail end of your personal story. I'm sorry I didn't get to hear it, but I don't know. You had read one of my books, but the sequel to this, it's got a long title. The first book that went from A to Z on the programming was the Illuminati formula used to create an undetectable, total mind-controlled slave. Mm-hmm. But its sequel was Deeper Insights. And in Deeper Insights, what I did is I tried to make this real clear just for any reader, how there's certain things that happen to a child, and if they're put in that situation, their mind, to protect itself, is going to react, So, like, let's say a good adult does something bad to a child. Now, how's the child to sort that out? Well, to preserve its own sense of the world, it does a flip-flop, and it thinks, well, I must be bad. It was my fault, And then, and so I go through in where I discuss that over a whole bunch of things on what the child's mind does to protect itself. And then you have these visible clues of that. So what the child wants to punish himself. You see people that are abusive to themselves. They sabotage their own achievements. They sabotage acts of love by other people, and they isolate. They're their own worst enemy. Well, that's a clue. That's a visible clue that they've been a victim of, some pretty bad things. And then the internally, they're sitting there with shame and guilt. They got this bad self-image because in order to make sense of the world, they figure, well, it must have been my fault that this happened,
I think I had that going on with myself. I blamed everything on my adoptive father's sexual abuse, but now reading about this, I don't know if I was brought up by Bishop Philip Harvey at the orphanage. He ran it hands-on. I haven't been able to find out much about him, but do you think he experimented on us kids, or it's hard to know for sure, isn't it?
Well, the word experiment is probably too kind. Just was just abusive was probably more. They're using these churches as fronts, so it doesn't shock me at all that somebody in the established church would. I mean, that's almost standard procedure. If you look at the Catholic Church and the bishops and so forth, well, I don't know what the figure is on how many priests and fathers and so forth have been accused of sexual molestation, but the Catholic Church has protected them, And of course, it got billions of dollars of lawsuits on it. But why is this stuff going on? Because it's actually part of the mind control. There's a much bigger context to all this, so they can't back out because they're a front for all these agencies that are carrying out this mind control, whether it be MI6 like you've got over there, MI5, whether it be over here, we've got the CIA, we've got our military groups. All these groups are involved in doing the mind control, but ultimately they too are just fronts for the ultimate secret society, the Illuminati. But anyway, let me let you ask some questions instead of getting long-winded.
Yeah, no, you're fine, Fritz. I ended up working. I mean, my father told me that he was told that my childhood was very overseen by this nun who was quite senior. She used to go back and fro to Rome from the Daughters of St. Paul order. And my father was told that me and my brother would probably join the army, even though I went into the territorials. I was very that way inclined. My brother wasn't. He's kind of, he went into something else. But then I worked for not MI6 directly because I haven't got the class for it. I would be lower middle, I suppose, upper working class. And, it's only the sort of Eton schoolboys that get into MI6. I joined one of the agencies that they call it MI6's commercial arm, which in London we have Hacklight, KCS, G3. So what happens, the officers from MI6 go out and then they start these agencies and they do black bag stuff for the government, and it's all carried out by the spooks, but it's deniable then by MI6. And I went in at a very early age at 19 and joined one of these agencies and became a spy. Is that more evidence, do you think, or is it just that I'm an actually nosy person and just went into that anyway?
Oh, that's strong evidence that you were subjected to the mind control. They really don't want people working for them that aren't under the mind control. It gives them it gives them leverage on the situation. If a person were to ever say something, they could say, well, this person's mental case, it gives them more control over where the direction that the person's going to take. There's just a lot of it.
I did feel, Fritz, that I used to believe that when I got ideas, they used to arrive like tornadoes inside my mind, such as go and have a love affair with the real IRA. And I kind of knew when I was there with him, and this is I'm not going to say I've been warned by them not to talk about this, so I'm not going to say his name. I think everybody knows who he is. I was a journalist at the time. I was working for the News of the World, and then of course my real IRA stories were so top notch. One of them features in my book, In for the Kill. We get inside the real IRA, where I sort of, do an interview with their number 3 in command. And it was just something in me driving. And I knew that the journalism wasn't the real thing. I knew that I was spying. I felt that I was spying on the real IRA, but I thought that was any fantasy of mine. It was almost like I was going in there and sort of, to almost see what I could, and then someone could access that in some kind of way. Can that happen as well? Can they sort of use somebody as a sort of little, eyes and ears and sort of download information from them? Well, I suppose they can listen in on someone's phone calls and hear them, gossiping about it or talking about what they've seen and heard anyway.
Well, what you just said is most likely what was exactly happening, and you're going to go in thinking that they're not going to send somebody in as a spy that knows they're a spy. They're not going to send, that's too obvious. They're going to be trying to act like a spy or something. But somebody like yourself who's got disassociated parts of your mind that are actually keeping track of things and then doing the spying, you have deniability. If someone were to grab you, okay, I'll give you an example. There was a woman here in Portland, and she had evidence of judicial corruption. So just out of the blue, a policeman came up from behind and he pulled a gun and shot her in the head. Yeah, that you can imagine what that does to someone's head to be shot that way. And her significant other, who had been with her a long time and was very much in love with her, he was very angry. And so he realized from reading my material that his woman was a programmed multiple, and so that the people around her, like this policeman that came up and shot her, was a multiple also. And so he was saying, well, could someone extract information out of these kind of people? Could you grab them and even to the point of torturing them? And I said, no, this doesn't work that way. In order for me to work with some of these alters, I had to be around these alters for a long time for them to get used to me, get used to my voice, and because the codes just don't work, just anybody saying them. But it's a process. And if you start to torture someone who's a program multiple, they're just going to go into a part of the mind, an alter that likes to be tortured. So you're not even going to get to the person that has the information. I said it's the perfect way to create a spy. They're never going to give information up. And not unless
It's interesting, Fritz, because when I, after the Ealing bomb, I went out and I went in a no-go area. Dundalk is a no-go area. The British can't go. There was a guy called Robert Nayrak, who was an SAS man, and he went into these areas and he got murdered in a horrific way. I mean, they chopped him up, basically. And so the British Army, they can't go. They can't send spies. And here was I walking into the Emerald Bar, which is a completely no-go area. And I was working for the News of the World, but I got picked up then by the Sunday Times, who wanted me to, check out a guy called Smith, who was going to be an assassin for the Real IRA, who was living down there, and go and knock on his door, find out about it. And I was doing all these things, and I actually got so close to the Real IRA that, interestingly, I, began a sexual affair with the leader, which is, which is kind of odd. And, I wrote about it in my book, but oddly, it didn't get any publicity. You'd think a News of the World journalist who was admitting to sleeping with the head of the Real IRA to get stories would receive some kind of, wow, that's a little bit out of order, but nothing. And again, it's odd, isn't it? And then when I, of course, introduced a man called John Boyle to the News of the World, Boyle had been working for these MI6 agencies that I had as a spy, and he brought in the hacking. Now, he didn't get, he's a multimillionaire, he didn't get revealed in the whole phone hacking saga. One of his patsies, a little office boy he picked up, who was a footballer, trained him up to do this stuff. He was hacking the royal family, and it was this patsy that Clooney is going to make a film about. No, I got completely wiped out of the picture. I'm in Nick Davis's book that's going to be made into the Clooney film, but he's called me a code name, York. So I'm pretty sure I'll be wiped out of the movie. But more importantly, I mean, I was only an in-betweener then. I was just, someone, a misfix-it that brought them together. And interestingly, the sexual component plays a part then, Fritz, because I was lovers with Greg Miskew. This is much documented in my book. Lovers with Greg Miskew, who's the News of the World editor, the news editor just under Andy Coulson. And I was lovers with John Boyle, who's the guy connected with the MI6 agencies, who's pretty much a golden boy with them. He's sort of a Dirk Bogarde lookalike who lives in a £8 million gated mansion out in Peasmarsh. So I brought these two men, and I had to, when the phone hacking happened, I was interviewed by Operation Wheating, and they said, why did you make this introduction? This is what kicked off phone hacking. And I said, well, I had to say at the time that I was lovers with both of them at the same time, and both of them were married. And I felt, completely mortified, because I'm not a slut. I was brought up Catholic, and I felt mortified to sit there and say I was having an affair with this married man and this married man. And because I was lovers with both of them, I was intimate with both of them. So I brought them both together, and they, of course, trusted each other. And so hacking was born. Of course, this was going to come out in the trial, and I was watched. They were frightened that I was going to be murdered. The cops came round once a week to check on me. But then what happened, the News of the World editors all pleaded guilty, apart from Coulson, Greg Miskew, Neville Thurber, Ian Edmondson. And so everyone that was going to be a witness, including me, was pushed out. Now, that meant that the MI6 connection wasn't mentioned. And that meant that the whole suspicion of, was this an MI6 operation, a project takedown? We always called our spying missions projects Violet, project this, project that. Was that a project takedown to destroy the British press? Because now they haven't got any powers of investigation. Indeed, the Daily Mail, now they do investigations. I rang them up and said, I used to work for you guys. I got you front page after front page. And the girl there, Karen Faulkner, or Catherine Faulkner, she said, we don't do investigations anymore, not since the phone hacking. And of course, they don't. They to delude the public, they stamp investigation on it, but it's not an investigation,
Yeah, right. Exactly.
So does that sexual part of me, since there was a sexual thing with the Real Array, sexual thing with the News of the World and the MI6, is that the sexual part of me that is the sort of spying part, do you think? Or?
Well, yeah, the women make the best spies, because men, when they're aroused, are very open. You can get them to talk about anything. And they are also very malleable. You can shape them too. So yeah, that's definitely.
I mean, there was part of me, Fritz, that thought, well, here I am. When I went to stay around his house, he'd split up with his wife. Again, someone married. He'd split up with his wife at the time, and I thought to myself, here I am in bed with the head of the Real IRA. It's 3 a.m. in the morning or whatever time it was, and when I woke up, and I thought, I can do anything. I can go and look at his computers. I can go and look at his phone. I did go and run through his phone and have a look. I went and had a good look around his house. I could do anything I wanted to do, basically.
Right. Yeah. And there probably is more to the story than you realize, too.
How do you mean?
Well, you're aware of your involvement at one level, but there may be more that they were gaining out of what you were doing than you were aware. And I'm going to ask, this is my own curiosity. Did you ever read that book he was in the inner circle of the IRA, and he provided, I read this many years ago, and he provided top level information for years to the British about their operations that they were going to do. And then he realized that they were going to throw them to the dogs because they really don't care about their someone, an informant or a snitch, whichever word you want to use.
Yeah. Was that Sean O'Callaghan? I met Callaghan, actually.
Yeah, I think that's okay. Who it was. Yeah. It's been so many years, I can't remember. But Sean sounds right. And then he escaped to America to stay alive.
That's right. Yeah. That would be, yeah, O'Callaghan. There was quite a few spies. Interestingly, Fritz, when I came back one time from the News of the World, there was a guy called Peter Rose, who was the crime journalist, the crime editor, head of crime anyway. And I just got off the plane, and there'd been the Ealing bomb, and he said to me, "Oh, my MI5 contact wants to meet with you." I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "Yeah, you're going to meet him in the pub to talk to him about you've been over there to a no-go spot. You're going to meet with my MI5 person." And I was really angry. And I said to him, look, I said, I'm not going to go over there spying. I said, because, they're Irish, and the Irish are really, really quite psychic, and a lot of the Real IRA was actually actually the SAS of the Provisional IRA. They were the engine room. I mean, McKevitt was the weapons man. So what happened when the Provisional IRA, Adams and McGuinness went over with the English and they were paid off, and the INLA were given 7 million, I believe, to again be paid off. The real IRA were actually, you know, the hardcore guys from Crossmaglen and Dundalk who actually didn't want to go along with the peace process. So it was odd. You got the guys in suits going, yeah, we're going to dish you up the provost, but actually the military men were going, no, we don't agree with it. So they called that then the real IRA, but actually they were the provost. So it was all a bit of a whitewash for the public. But I said to Peter Rose, I said, I sit with those guys down in a bar in the early hours of the morning, and I sit there, and these guys are sharp, and they're not just sharp in the way they're Irish, and the Irish are very switched on, and they'll look at you deep in the eyes, and they say, you know, I hope you're not spying on us, love, because we'll fucking cut you up, you know. And this is a terrifying. And if I said to Peter Rose, if I was spying for your MI5 contact, I said, number one, I would sit there with those guys and I would shit myself, because Robert Noreck's gum was found lying under a bridge, and they say that they put him in the meat pasties. Could anybody sit with guys like that and, you know, have the crack and knock back Guinness and think, yay, this is fun, and actually have a love affair with one of them? You would think that you would have your arms and legs cut off. I said, so Peter, you back off me. And he said to me, oh, we'll do it the nice way or the nasty way. And, you know, I said to him, and then I started to get the clue that, you know, was I spying, and, you know, was I being listened into on my phones? Although somebody told me that I was tapped at the time when I was getting all the real IRA stories, that my phone was listened into. And my apartment was bugged as well, because my real IRA stories were so bang on about what they were doing. Obviously, I was getting it straight on Pillow Talk, and, you know, I was filing copy. I was allowed to file copy the next morning. But it's interesting. Only when I came across yourself and your work did I think that it might have been, you know, against my interests. And then also, Fritz, that being thrown from the Freedom Train, that thing that you were talking about, that I've, you know, lived a life where I've done a lot of work, but I look around and I've actually got no assets. I've got no husband. And I look at my life and think, well, is that actually everything I've done? Has that benefited me? Have I grown in the normal way of, say, you know, the women in the village where I live, where, you know, they get married, the husband supports them, they buy a house, they grow. I've got none of that. I'm almost like a new Syrian refugee coming to the country. I've got no money. But that's what they do too, isn't it? To keep you hungry.
Right.
Yeah. So talking about the Freedom Train, if someone feels that they've had this done to them, or if they've had it done to them, what would you say is the first thing to do? Would you say that Jesus Christ is the answer, and prayer?
Well, Jesus Christ is definitely the answer, and prayer is definitely powerful. And if it's done in the right way, but I don't want to put out there pat answers. I tell you what, Christine, when I first started ministering to these women that were in the Illuminati, and the way it came about is that I had been researching the Illuminati, and that was my Be Wise as Serpents book. And I had a friend that knew how much research I had put into studying the Illuminati. And he walked by some women that he overheard them say the word Illuminati. And he turned around, and being a people person, boy, I seem to be losing my voice.
That would be part of it.
Anyway, bear with my voice becoming hoarse. I don't know what that's all about. But anyway, he turned around and said, if you're interested in the Illuminati, you ought to meet my friend, because he knows all about it. And so they agreed to meet. But what it turned out is that they were or four women that were teamed together in the Illuminati, and they were all trying to get out, and they became a support team to each other to get out. But they had had lots of miracles just to get to that point. And then I had other Christian brothers that were with me, and we were going to minister together, and we were going to help these people together. And what happened is they expected instant miracle answers, microwave answers. That's sort of the way the American people are anyway. I hate to say this. I'm an American, and I don't like to be critical, but the truth is that our culture has allowed Americans to think that things should be given to them very quickly. You go to a fast food restaurant and you get your food. If they don't get it in a few minutes, they're upset. So they were expecting microwave answers. And even though miracles continued to happen in these women's lives, we didn't get instantaneous, full-blown miracle that completely took care of it all. And that makes total sense, because let's say you're addicted to cocaine. Okay, you're going to have a struggle. Well, this mind control is like, 1,000 times worse than being addicted to cocaine. It's total mind control. And there's so many issues, and there's so many ways that they have controlled you that you can have a miracle that's way beyond what most people ever experience, and it still leaves you needing many more miracles. And it's like peeling back an onion. You peel one layer, and then you come to the next layer. And so I found that as we were working with the programming, we would get the programming cleared from one layer before we could go to the next layer. So, all my friends deserted me because, this was taking work. It was taking a lot of patience, a lot of work.
What do you think, Fritz, about, say thinking, I'm using myself as an example, I'm not trying to be egocentric on my own show, but say, I had fun, destroying the news of the world. I had fun being a spy with the real IRA. They were real adventures. How about if you think, well, actually I had a nice time there and I had plenty of money, and bring on the next mission. Is that wrong? Or I suppose it is wrong, isn't it? Because then you go back and you think about good and evil, and what are the Illuminati, and who brought us mind control. And there's a question, I suppose. So, yeah.
Here's what goes through my mind. And this goes back, it helps explain something that I said previously. Okay, one night when I was at a place where different agents that were under trauma-based mind control would go, it was a restaurant, and it was connected to the Mexican mafia, which did the dirty work for the Illuminati in our area. But anyway, there was a program multiple lady there, and she was, and I was at her table and talking with her, and she said she was talking about her life, and it was her front altar, her front personality was going, and I've got 14 boyfriends, and all of these are platonic relationships. And so from her level of, she understood things on one level, but she had dissociated parts that I'm sure were doing things on a deeper level, but on her level of thinking, it was all platonic, So what I'm saying is on your conscious awareness, yeah, you were having fun, but there were probably dissociated parts of you that were doing a lot, the kind of things that you would probably have scared you. And when she told me that she had all these platonic relationships, I wanted to start crying, because I knew enough of the situation and what was going on with her to realize, no, these weren't platonic relations. And these people that she was meeting with, they were not the type of people that would have platonic relations. So anyway, I think that there's a possibility that, and you wouldn't be aware of it. You wouldn't know it, because if you lose time, you forget that what you forgot. You know?
I've never lost time though.
Never lost time.
No.
Well,
never.
maybe it was just fun, and maybe there wasn't anything more to it. But my sense of how they operate is they usually try to use someone like you for something more.
Oh, we're going to break now. Could you stay with us, Fritz?
Oh yeah, I'm here for the duration.
Excellent, thank you.
Transcending time and space, let us take you to the place inside your mind where thoughts divide and mysteries unwind. Join us every Monday evening right here on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. And you will catch the Fenton Perspective with our great host, Lorian Fenton. Come listen in as she shares her amazing stories from the past to present, along with all of her guest secrets to the future. That's the Fenton Perspective every Monday evening right here from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time, only on Revolution Radio. Oh, and you don't need to expect us. We're already here.
Hi everybody, it's me, The Fetch, host of Inside the Eye Live. Before the Sunday mainstream media political pundit talk shows, there is Inside the Eye Live, where we break down some of the weekly mainstream media talking points before the talking points even get aired. Add in some entertaining stories, weather, cats, intriguing and informative guests, and you get one of the most listened to Saturday morning streaming media political talk shows going today. And it's all right here on our flagship station, Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. So join me, The Fetch, for Inside the Eye Live every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern. It is truly intelligent media for the politically aware.
Who are you? I am the architect. I created the Matrix. I've been waiting for you.
Why am I here?
You are the eventuality of an anomaly which, despite my sincerest efforts, I have been unable to eliminate from what is otherwise a harmony of mathematical precision, which has led you inexorably here.
You haven't answered my question.
The Matrix is older than you know. As you are undoubtedly gathering, the anomaly is systemic, creating fluctuations in even the most simplistic equation.
Choice. The problem is choice.
Right here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. Be here Wednesday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern Time for Private Eye Matrix Revealed with Monique Lasan.
This is Thomas, a.k.a. a Mad Painter. I'd like you to join me Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Open Canvas. Don't forget to bring an open mind.
Yes, folks, that's right. Bring an open mind to an open canvas. Again, that is Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern. UFOs to government corruption. This is Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent news story, and I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
On the go? Still want to listen? Don't have one of those fancy phones with too many buttons. Don't know what an app is? Or you don't even care? Well, we got you here at Revolution Radio. Now you can dial in 24/7 to listen to our shows. We have a number for Studio A and Studio B, and best of all, it's free. Don't forget, your carrier charges for your cell phone provider may apply, though, so check with your cell provider to make sure. So ready? Here you go. Get a pen. Here's the number. Studio A is 712-432-6958. And Studio B is 716-748-0112. Thank you very much for listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, the number one listener-supported radio station in the world.
Enjoy your
extra big-ass fries.
You didn't give me no fries. I got an empty box.
Would you like another?
Extra big-ass fries.
I said I didn't get any.
Thank you. Your account has been charged. Your balance is 0. Please come back when you can afford to make a purchase.
No.
I'm sorry you're having
trouble.
trouble.
Come on. My kids are starving.
Thank you for tuning in to Revolution Radio. Here at Revolution Radio, we believe in freedom of ideas, freedom of speech, but above all, we believe in freedom of existence through self-reliance. This station is 100% listener-supported, and as a fundraising promotion, I have a kick-ass free gift for a $100 donation. 35,000 seeds. 25 years in the freezer. Long-term storable, 54 different varieties. So if food prices go crazy, the shit hits the fan, or if you just want to save tons of money every year by creating your own food like I do, grab our seed pack special. Just look for the banner on the homepage at freedomslips.com. Don't be a statistic. Don't be part of the problem. Be part of the solution. We need, as humans, to start taking care of ourselves and not depending on the megacorps to provide unhealthy, nasty food. Included in this package is also a DVD with 900 survival and off-grid living documents and the offline home canning how to do everything website all on the DVD. So when you're growing all that food, you know how to can it, store it, preserve it, etc. with all these documents. So thank you for tuning in to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. I hope that you will pick up this package and start learning to be free. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, where information never sleeps and freedom is one seed that needs to be planted.
What we do in life, it goes in eternity.
And we're back on air. And good morning, America. Waking up over there. And I hope it's going to be a fantastic day for you. We're having a really exciting show at the moment. We've got the author and mind control expert, Fritz Springmeier. And I also want to make a mental note to myself. I want to talk about his Christian books as well. We've got an hour to go, so I'm going to try and squeeze everything in. It's Christine Hart, ex-Fleet Street journalist, talking to you from London. It's pretty grey skies over London this morning. We're not going to see any sun. So it's getting it's autumn now, so everyone's got their coats on, and it's all pretty grim. We've got Halloween to look forward to, but of course we don't really celebrate Halloween over here. It's mainly something that you guys do over there in America, which is quite fun. We're talking to Fritz this morning. I was talking about my own experiences as a Monarch MK Ultra victim, my childhood in a Jesuit-run orphanage, and my abusive upbringing, and also the working for ex-MI6 agencies, the ex-spooks, MI6's commercial arm, as it's called. Fritz was saying earlier about having lost time, and in the break, Fritz, are you with us, by the way?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, there you are. Good. I didn't think we'd lost you. Welcome back. I was thinking, you were saying about lost time, and I was thinking that, there were occasions like, being in bed with a real IRA commander and sort of waking up and thinking, oh my God, what am I doing here? I did get, a lot of those kind of moments where I did, like go to sleep and then wake up and think, what the hell? Even though I knew where I was, there was a question, what did I do this for? Oh my God. And a lot of times it did, make me feel absolutely terrified. I remember meeting someone to be taken into Dundalk, and they pulled up in a car, And as soon as I got in the car, I seemed to get in another state of mind where I was absolutely terrified. And I said, I want to get out of the car. And he was driving going into the depths of the countryside. I just got off the plane, the depths of the countryside. And I just thought, I want to get out of this car. I'm scared they're going to kill me. And the torture that the IRA does, they make you sit on cookers and, it's the worst torture ever. And I'd read all about it, and I just, wanted to. So I did switch from feeling excited and let me penetrate right to the core here, and finding it almost amusing, this laconic side of me, which was almost like on that film, The Long Kiss Goodnight, when the girl cuts her hair and it goes blonde and says, I'm Charlie. It was almost, I had a part of me that was uber confident and just, and then another part that was absolutely shit scared and thought, what the hell is going on? What am I doing? So I did have that going on rather than lost time. I think they call that switching, don't they?
It sounds like you had mixed feelings. It may be that you were one of the victims of mind control that didn't have multiple personality disorder. It could be that they just used things like hypnosis on you. And they have ways of, when the programming's put in, you forget that you've had any programming done. So, you shouldn't expect that you would remember that they had given you anything. But it does. But your story does lead me to believe that that your mind had the suggestion put in. Now do this, and when you could think on your own, you were like horrified. What am I doing? Could that be possibly an explanation for what happened?
Yeah, it could be. It could be, definitely. I mean, the IRA thing just arrived. It was I always felt this like thing where it was, go to a shop, get a book, or go to the library, get a book. And it used to be nagging inside my mind. And, in the end, I would just, to stop the sort of nagging inside my mind, I would go to the library or go to the bookstore. And then it would be, go there. It was almost like something pushing inside me. And I would pick up a book and think, a book about the IRA? Why am I reading that? And, and find myself reading it. And the next thing, of course, I'd be saying to the news editor, I'm going to do a story over, on the IRA, and then finding myself, wanting to penetrate and get closer into it. It's almost like a flooding feeling I had, with sort of, to sort of, it was almost like a heat-seeking missile, which is a strange feeling. I thought everybody lived like that,
No, and that does sound very much like mind control to me, like you had what's called a hypnotic suggestion put in some way.
Right.
Yes.
Do they do that from a distance, or they can do that from a distance?
They have a whole number of ways. But like I'm saying, they can access you and put it in, and then you won't even be aware. Like, okay, I'm just going to say this as a hypothetical, I'm not saying this is necessarily it, the explanation, but in the middle of the night, you can have part of your mind that's programmed to wake up. And then that part of the mind will go out to the street, be picked up, and they can do the programming right there in like a van, and you come back and are put back to sleep, and you yourself, the conscious everyday part of you, is totally unaware that here in the middle of the night some programming went on. For all you know is that you got a night's sleep, although maybe you feel like you should have gotten a little bit more rest, or feel a little bit more rested than you did. That can happen.
I had a weird thing as Well, when I introduced the MI6 guide to the News of the World, which brought in the phone hacking, which effectively shut down the British press. It's changed now. I didn't want to bring in this character to Greg Miskew, and I suggested it to him. And then I thought later I had again the two minds thing where I thought, hang on. I was earning $100,000 a year doing investigations, bringing all the knowledge from the spying companies I worked for to the News of the World. So I was their golden girl. I was on $100,000 a year, and I've got the accountant's figures and booklets to prove that. And I was pretty much lauded on there, and I thought this is fantastic. And then when I had the idea to introduce this John Boyle character, I thought to myself, well, hang on, I don't want to do that, because that might take away my money, and it might affect it in some kind of way, or I didn't realize how much it would affect it. And I said to the editor rung me one day, and he said to me, oh, can you introduce me to John Boyle? You said you would. I need him. I've got so much investigations work. And I thought, oh, you're joking. So I said to him, no, I'm not. I thought, no, I've woken up to this. I'm not going to do this, shoot myself in the foot. And I said, no, you're going to have to part with me as an investigator. I'm not going to do that. And he said to me, oh, okay, that's fine. Oh, Chris, how do you spell his name? And I thought, how dare you? I mean, he was my boyfriend at the time, although he was married. I thought, how dare you try and blag me? Like, oh, what's his name? So he can find him on his own. So I said, Burle. Of course, that's not the right spell. And I slammed down the phone, and I was really angry that he tried to con me into giving his name. And I remember I went over to the computer, and I had something from a friend of my aunt, Sister Mary Lou, one of the nuns at the convent, and she was talking to me. I had obviously mentioned to her that I had a heavy workload, and I was thinking of introducing this guy. Anyway, I gave her a call, and I was talking to her, and she said, oh, you must introduce John Boyle to the News of the World. And weirdly, I put down the phone, went over, rung back Greg Miskew, who just tried to blag me to get this guy's name, and I realized it. And I said to him, oh, I will introduce you to John Boyle. And I remember at the time he said, what? He said, how do you mean? I said, no, I will introduce you. I'll set up a dinner. We'll meet at the Wolsey sometime this week. And he went, oh, great. And I put down the phone, and since I'm in poverty at the moment, and back then I was driving a Lotus and earning so much money, I think of that and doing that, and the sort of a nun saying, you must introduce the News of the World to John Boyle, and the utter chaos that it caused. And of course, the whole Boyle being left out of the whole thing. And I think, was that her triggering me at that point to do that?
Yes, very well. That's the way it can work. I've watched that. And so there's programming put in there of some kind that would make you respond favorably to whatever she said.
Yeah, I think, I had when I came across, yourself, and I'd read your books, I had a dream, and in the dream I was being showed stuff, and someone was saying, you must obey the clergy at all given times. You must obey the clergy at all given times, so I think that must have been the trigger, that it's a member of the clergy, I must do what they say.
Yeah, they're using religion, and they spent the 60s and the 70s researching very intently how they could manipulate and use religion to their ends. And so you saw recently, I wrote an article about how this Mennonite denomination had been used, how they'd infiltrated and used this Mennonite denomination. And nobody had caught on that there was this going on. In fact, the first public exposure of it was my article, but I got it from someone who was a therapist who had been really close to all this happening, and had finally, through my books, realized what was going on.
Mm. Are you familiar with Colonel Michael Aquino?
Well, I guess I can't say I'm not familiar with them, because I got a whole stack of stuff that was inside information from the Temple of Set. I got letters that he wrote. I got all kinds of inside information sent to me, and the guy's a freak.
Interestingly, because this woman I met a woman called Anna, I think she knew Cisco, who she when I became part of her group, she mentioned Colonel Michael Aquino, and me being a journalist and being English, I found the name fascinating. So I thought, I'm going to look into this. So I Googled him a few times, and I thought, he knows about this mind control. I'm going to question him about my orphanage and whether that was involved. And I thought probably naively actually that he might give some clues, even if the fact he'd been to London, and she basically told me off about doing it and said he's just going to lie to you. But obviously being an investigative journalist, you're used to people lying to you. I mean, I've interviewed serial killers like Kenneth Bianchi, Ian Brady. Of course they lie, but you just got to peep through the cracks and see little chinks of truth. So I wanted to confront Aquino, so I sent an email off to him, Fritz, and I said, it was quite officious. I said, here's my credentials, and I think I said a copy of my press pass as well, and I said, I want to interview you about this kind of stuff. And I didn't receive a reply, but one evening I was just laying there trying to get off to sleep, and I saw this like in my mind's eye, I saw like a rabbit, and it was a white rabbit, and its nose was pink, and I don't like rabbits, I don't like hamsters, they kind of make me want to barf, and it was really strong in my mind's eye, and I thought, that's really odd, and it's kind of disgusting. So I got up off the bed and I washed my hands, and I had white rabbit dreams before, when Nick Davis from The Guardian was interviewing me about John Boyle, and I said to him that I was going to talk to him, and then I went to sleep that night and had a dream about loads of white rabbits attacking me, and it was so horrible. And I knew in the dream enough about spirituality to turn around and ask them who they were. So I turned around and said, who are you? And they came back at me and they said, Murdoch's Empire, and they were all biting me. So I rang Nick Davis the next morning and said, I'm not going to fess up about what went on at the News of the World. And he went, why? I said, I had a nasty bunny nightmare, and I put that in my book, In for the Kill. And he said, oh, come on. And I said, no, it was terrifying. I'm sorry, I don't want to talk to you. And he investigated it on its own, but he investigated Boyle, but it was all left out of his book. Interestingly, I don't know what happened there. He told me it was legals, but but this night there was the big white rabbit, and I went up, splashed my face with water, thinking once I lay down again it would go out of my head because it was so vile. You could actually even see the fur, Fritz. And just as I was about to just think, right, I'm not going to go to sleep because this is uncomfortable, and it's like almost stopping me from going to sleep, the rabbit, this is going to sound unbelievable, but the rabbit shot off, and it was almost like a part of me lifted up out of my body and went shoo. After it, I've been out of my body before in various times, but this was really strong. And then I followed it for a little while really fast, and then it sort of found myself falling down like a kind of a tunnel, and then I landed with a crash at the bottom, and at the bottom there was Aquino, which I recognized him from his pictures or just the feeling of him, and he said, what do you want? And I said, well, how do you mean what do I want? He said, no, what do you want? And I said, an interview with you. And he said, no, what do you really want? And I said, well, I suppose love. And he led me down this corridor, and he led me out to this vision. And it was like I was looking at the universe. It was quite dark with stars and planets. And he showed me a shape. And it was like a kind of a weird shape in the air, and it was kind of got bigger, and it was a shape within a shape within a shape. And he said, once you get inside that, he said, you can time travel to wherever you want, and you can pick any character in history and go inside their minds. And he said, isn't that great? And he said, you can have that. And I said, I don't. I said, oh, well, okay. I said, what about Jesus? No, he said something about, oh, we're the powerful ones, and we're the fallen angels, and the old God has left us, and we must reclaim our power. And I said to him, what about Jesus Christ? And then I found myself like banged back on the bed. And then I thought, well, I spoke to a friend, and a friend said, stay right away from him. And I found myself then for the few nights after being actually tugged out of my body And again, I kept seeing him, and he kept asking me who was I, what I was up to. And I said, well, I don't know what, I'm not up to anything. And then I emailed him again and said, hi, Michael. I made it much friendlier. I said, hi, Michael, I believe we're meeting at night times. And I told him what had happened, what I'd experienced. And he merely sent me back a link to the song, the White Rabbit song with Jefferson's Jefferson's Starship, I think. And then after that, we discussed the Temple of Set. But what do you think about that White Rabbit stuff, Fritz?
Well, as you know from reading my books, the Alice in Wonderland White Rabbit thing is standard programming for across the board for trauma-based mind control. And wow, there were a number of things that you said that got mental reactions from me, and I'm trying to pull them back up because I was trying to listen instead of focus on what I was going to say. Mm-hmm. Well, you know, he's far nastier than you can imagine as a person. We're talking about someone who's very self-centered and sadistic. He works with Jesuit mind control, and he works within the context of a lot of his victims are within the Catholic Church. So, you know, so the context of your life and who he works with seem to, you know, pair up or match. So that's kind of interesting in itself.
Well, I do remember after, you know, my mind started opening up and I was remembering stuff from my orphanage. I remember an American man, but a good-looking American man, a very good-looking one. And then after I got, you know, I was emailing him, I did have some horrible memory. I don't know if they were memories, but I had horrible memories of him being with him as a child, and not very nice things were happening to me. But I mean, how can you work out whether that's your imagination conjuring it or whether it's a memory? I asked him, did he go to London to our orphanage in Westminster? He said he hadn't been to London ever, and yet I found something on the internet saying he had been to London.
Yeah, that's a lie on his part. But then, you know, like you say, you're used to people lying to you. When he was younger, he looked a lot better, you know, than as he aged. Age wasn't kind to him. Uh-huh. But then when you're, what's the word I'm looking for? Hedonistic. When you're hedonistic, you know, time isn't going to be all that kind to you. So it could have been him when you were younger, or it could have been him supervising somebody else. These, you know, now we're getting into speculation, which is not something.
What about the what he showed me and the what he showed me, that thing they wanted me to get inside? Oh, that's odd, isn't it? Do you know, he came to me night after night where I wouldn't go to sleep, and I had to go and get help from the church. Again, I suppose I went back to the church, but I was terrified because every night for a week, and it oh God, it was so terrifying. I didn't go to sleep. I would try to go to sleep, but instead of, like, you know, when you drift off, it was almost like my consciousness was being taken somewhere else, and it wasn't a nice place. It wasn't like a feel of somewhere higher. It was almost like somewhere where you're trapped in. And I was seeing some horrid things. I was seeing dolls, and the dolls were turning round, and the dolls had me inside them, and there was a little girl.
Dolls are part of trauma-based mind control programming. That's a standard feature. And again, going back to his connection to the Catholic Church, he's had a number of the people that he programmed, he placed them in the context of following the church, you know, because particular people in the church, perhaps you're none, are actually part of this network of mind control abuse. So some of his victims are told, just like you were programmed, followed church officials, knowing that, of course.
Well, interesting, Fritz. My adopted mother, she was very invested in calling me evil, and literally she spent her whole life crushing my life. I got to grammar school. She told me, you can't do that, you can't do that, you can't do that. How come you're doing that? Literally every morning when I went out the door, I was crushed,
Well, that's standard part of the mind control too. You'll see that in my books, how they want to destroy you as a person.
Yeah, she did a good job of that, and she beat me as well. I remember really bad beatings. The backs of my legs were just like lumpy and red raw, and all my life she put me down. I was bad, and she died recently, and she had friends around her who were almost like involved in the same thing. I mean, she had a friend around the corner from where we were living called Rita, and I went to see Rita because my mother had left her, most of the money in her will. We hadn't got left, we'd got left very little money. And I spoke to her, and she said to me, "Oh, well, you hurt your mother. You weren't a good daughter." I said, "How do you mean?" She said, "Oh, you got into drugs when you were younger." I said, "Rita, I didn't ever take drugs." I said, "Because they used to scare me. I think I took a toke of a joint once." And she said, "Oh, where are you living now? Are you on assistance?" I said, hang on now. This is all, what's going on here? What you're putting on me isn't who I am. You're putting on me a certain type of person. This is not who I am. I'm a published author. I worked in Fleet Street. I've attained some levels in life. Hang on now. But it was almost like she was running on a program, put me down. And there's a priest at the church, interestingly, called Father John at the church I go to. And do you know what she said to me? Even though she's not Catholic, go and talk to Father John about this. And I went, hang on. I said, Father John. Now, Father John, when I go to see Father John, he looks at me in this same way, as if, I'm a really bad person, slightly, just about to leap on him or something. And I said, no. I'm not going to speak to Father John. I'm going to speak to Father Dominic because he's a good priest. And at my mother's funeral, interestingly enough, I didn't want her ties over me to continue. So I made sure that I was completely in charge of the funeral. But her friends got this priest to say the mass. I didn't want him to, Father John, to say the mass, but I was in charge of the ceremony. So what I did, I read from Revelations about, if you're sinning on earth, you will suffer for it. I sung a very spiritual song, Spirit of God, these kind of things. And then I knew that when Father John would say the sermon, he would say something about her being close to Christ. And indeed he did. He said she's done a lot for the church. She's now sitting beside Christ. I mean, can you absolutely believe that? It was nonsense completely, but sorry.
Cisco's stepfather, who was a sexual molester, sexual predator, sadistic, blah, blah, blah. And so when we died, I decided, let's go and see what this funeral looks like. They had 3 Christian ministers get up there and praise him like he was like the next thing next to Jesus Christ. And I was like, so this shows how dirty the guy was. I mean, one of his other daughters was there, and after the service, we started talking, and she started talking about how she had been sexually abused by him too. And it's just like, one minister would have been enough, but it's like these people are so evil that the network knows that they need to go overboard with having 3 ministers there talking about how great he was. So,
yeah.
You tell it talking about, was it Father John praising how great your mother was?
Yeah.
I've seen the same thing at funerals. So, hey, this is the way they do it.
I felt that there was going to be almost like her spirit would carry on, and I just wanted to cut the cord. So even though I can't sing, I sung, and I sung all the songs, and I sung, I just wanted to add some spirituality. And my friend who was there, he said I was crying as you were singing. He said you were flat as a pancake. He said, but there was something I could feel the Holy Spirit in it. He said, and that made me cry. And that I thought, oh, thank God, because that's what I wanted to bring some goodness, to bring something in that was real and spiritual, rather than this horrific kind of thing which I felt was going on with Father John. I mean, in the Catholic Church, there are some good priests. There are some spiritual priests. There are some good ones, and there are really, really bad ones. I think it's a bit like going to a hairdresser, isn't it? You've got to there are some good amongst the bad, don't you think, Fritz?
Yeah, when we say good, that's a relative statement, because it's like Christ said, there's none good. So, it depends on how we define good. But yeah, there's definitely some decent fathers out there, decent small town priests, and but also I would say, being part of a corrupt system, if at a certain point you can't turn a blind eye to it, and if you're true to the truth, you've just got to walk away from the whole thing, the whole mess. Yeah. And so, I mean, how much of a blind eye do the decent ones have to use to put up with all of the corruption around them?
That's true. That's true. I want to. That's a very good point, Fritz. I want to just talk about the alien demon thing. I mean, and what's going on with our planet. I believe that there's no such thing as aliens, and that they're demonic. I don't. Where do you stand on that, Fritz?
From early on, my take on it was that these are evil demonic entities. We've got a lot of tampering with the whole alien thing by the New World Order types. Our intelligence agencies and so forth running scams on us. And so some of these aliens are actually people. Some of the people that have said that they were abducted are just under mind control. And then some of them, because I know some people personally that say that they've had alien abductions, when you actually know the situation better, they were like drunk or something like this. So there's a wide variety of explanations, but there are no benevolent aliens out there that are 500,000 years further evolved from us that are going to help us out. Nothing like that. And I had, and it's in some box still somewhere, I had a tape recording of an alien talking. And he's talking about what an advanced race they are and how benevolent. And I tell you, anybody that's heard that recording of this alien, there's no other conclusion, but it's a demon.
Oh, right.
You can tell it's a demon.
Yeah, you can tell them. I've read Father Malachi's book, Hostage to the Devil, and when you hear the demons talking in there, they actually make your blood run cold, because you can tell it's the real deal.
Right. And this recording will make you shivers run up your spine.
Oh, I'd love to hear it. If you can send it to me somehow.
I don't know. I just recently moved to the country, and I got shoehorned into a really small place, And so most of my stuff is in boxes where you can't even get to it. And
Oh, don't
so
worry.
I
Don't
have
worry.
no idea.
I hope you're enjoying your new place.
Year-long project probably to find this.
Oh, don't worry, don't worry. So, yeah. So what's going on with our planet at the moment? I mean, these reptilian things. Are they? I mean, are the demons going to fall down? It's getting quite dark here, isn't it? What do you think's going on? Are these end times, or what do you think's happening?
Well, the mother of all secret societies, the Illuminati, and those that work with them, the network, they have a lot of cards in their hands. They have scenarios that they can play. And for them, this whole thing's like, if you, and I have I've talked with some of these kingpins, just like you met with some of the IRA. You wonder, how safe it is to be around these kind of situations. But anyway, they view the world as a chessboard. For them, it's just a big game. Like, let's say World War II, millions of people die, but for them, it's just a chess game, So, so they have cards that they can play. And one of their cards is a mock alien invasion. And they've explained to me at a certain point, they may, because they are so convinced that they have things wrapped up. It kind of bothered me that as hard as I have worked to try to derail their whole agenda and expose it, that it's like they have so much confidence that little people like myself are not going to really interfere.
So what do they want us all in FEMA camps so they can have the planet to themselves, or are they going to keep us as sort of farm animal free range slaves? What's our future? What's the
Well, basically it will be very easy to genocide the majority of us useless eaters, and they've been doing that. You may have seen a recent article that I had on the GCMAF, where we had these doctors that discovered about the GC macrophage activating factor and how it prevents cancer and how they're destroying that. And so we've had 12 doctors, a lot of them centered in Florida, that have been killed, murdered, and then the police really strangely don't investigate obvious murders and just rule them as suicides, even though the families are saying this wasn't suicide, but the police just ignore everybody that knows these doctors and go ahead with their own agenda. But anyway, where this fits in is a lot of people are getting cancer, and so it's very easy to wipe out a lot of us with these what seem to be natural diseases,
Ebola, AIDS.
Yeah, so we're gonna. You look at the influenza right after World War I. It started at Fort Leavenworth, it started at Fort Riley, which was just north of where I graduated from high school. And these epidemics are man-made, and they're very easy to create, and so a lot of us will be gone before they do something like a mock alien invasion.
What will the aliens look like, Fritz?
Pardon me?
What will the aliens look like? Will they look like reptilians and these lizards that everyone's talking about? What will they look like?
That's a good question. I don't know which brand of aliens, but from the hints that were given to me, I sort of thought that they would be something like the Pleiadians, who have come across as a very Billy Meyer in Switzerland
Yeah.
Palladium.
Is there such a thing as the Palladians, or they're just demonic? Are they?
Well, the people that have interacted felt really. They don't call themselves Palladians. That's the name other people have given them. They have a different name that they go by, actually, to be technically correct. But
what is that name?
Oh, it starts with a P, and I can't remember it offhand. But I just wanted to be technically correct here. I'm that type of a person. I like to be technically correct with things.
Sure.
But
do they exist, or they're demons coming as friends?
Well, you talk to someone like Billy Meyer, and he's fully convinced that he doesn't see them as demons. But they're very human-like.
But what do you think? What's your opinion?
His thing is hard for me to have a final explanation. I have maybe competing theories or mixed ideas in my mixed ideas about what it. But one possible explanation is he's been subjected to mind control, so that he presents the story that they want him to, and that there's some 3D explanations for what's going on, that different various explanations maybe. It may not be the same explanation every time he meets them. But some of the photographs that he's taken look very real, and people need to be aware that they have vehicles, anti-gravity vehicles, just like this. And so he may have actually seen some genuine flying saucers. He may have gotten some genuine photographs or film of genuine flying saucers. But the story that he's presenting, I think, is a made-up script.
So do you think we're living at end times? Is this Satan and the fallen angels? Are they coming to get us and crush us using the Illuminati, who are clearly on their side? Is that what's going on?
That would be a very good assessment. I know that's people would say, well, that's a Christian paradigm, but if you had, let's say you weren't a Christian and you had experienced some of the programming and some of the things that I have seen these people in the Illuminati say, you would come to probably that conclusion from interacting with them as I had, even if you hadn't been a Christian. If you read my material, you'll see that I call these their covens and their programming and who they are and their bloodlines satanic.
It's like, I've read your excellent book of Bloodlines. I recommend it to everyone that's listening. Isn't it like Aquino said to me on the Astral that he believes that we're the fallen angels and we're one with them, and God's left us and we ought to have their power and get their power? I can see how that might be seductive to some people.
Yeah. And there's some people that say, oh, well, they just say that just for the effect. No, these people really believe it. And Cisco's father, he used to tell her, that he didn't mind working with demons and fallen angels because he had been convinced that he was going to rule with them in hell.
Yeah.
So even if someone had, and I know that's a far stretch because people can't put themselves, they can't go back in time and be in my shoes for several years, but for several years working with these people that were coming out of the Illuminati, I can definitely say without me putting my paradigm on their situation. These people were coming out of satanic covens that did satanic rituals, that worshiped Satan, that interacted with fallen angels and demons and blah, blah, blah. And so to say that this end time scenario, like you're saying, is what's going on, it certainly matches both these people, the Satanist paradigm, as well as the Christian paradigm. Now, maybe all of them are deluded. Maybe it's something else, but it certainly matches very closely what the scriptures say and what these people think that they're doing.
I had a weird experience where I was threatened actually in a dream. It was a lucid dream, and it was a being who said to me, to keep quiet about what I was talking about on air when I was doing all the interviews. And it was interesting. I asked this being, I said, what is going on? And they basically communicated back with me, not in words, in thought form, that there was a battle, and the battle was going on all over the universe, and that our planet was a small part of it, but that we were still fighting, and that the dark side had basically nearly overcome it, but we were fighting back, and that Christ, that the battle on this particular planet, maybe not on others, was about them versus Christ. And we were basically, his children, and we were, like the pawns on the chessboard. But the big battle was going on between the dark, whatever, this satanic being or whoever he is, or what it is, and Christ. And that the battle was, and we had to really pick sides. And interestingly, Fritz, I find there's a new revolution going on at the moment, and certainly in schools. And my son he's only 11. He's reading at the moment an occult, a satanic book, which is compulsory reading. And I complained about it, but I was stopped. Oh, no. This is a best-selling author, the Darren Shan book, the Cirque de Freak, and the next one, Tunnel of Blood, where it tries to persuade the schoolboys that the demonic is all very sexy, and to drink blood and come out of your body. And there's the big thing about give your body over to these dark forces because they're sexy, and you can get special powers, and you can mind read your friend there at school, and even to the point in this particular book that they have to read as compulsory at the moment, and study it, even though it's evil. They have to study it as if it's fantastic stuff, to come out of your body. And the boy in the story wants to kill his family, but the message is that doesn't matter, because you're going to get special powers, and you want powers, and your family are boring anyway. And the boy gets inside a coffin, and then he's reborn as a demonic entity, and they go off. He goes off with the older man who's sucked the blood off his fingers. As a sexual imagery there, pedophile imagery there, and then they go together to kill a man jogging in the park. And I had it out with Darren Shan, and Darren Shan says, oh, no, I give a Christian message. My books are a hidden Christian. Of course they're not. And he said at the end, oh, it doesn't matter. They don't kill the guy. They just drink his blood. Oh, right. Okay, that's fine then. But I find there seems to be a revolution going on where the dark side is saying, let this come inside you. And interestingly, I was watching a YouTube video the other day where it said, that they're after the temples. And we see it as these massive temples on earth, but really the temples are our bodies. And I think that's where they're waging the war. It's all inside, not outside. Don't you agree, Fritz?
Oh, totally. And, my wife was a tenured teacher at a public high school. And in 1990, she brought me there. They had outlawed Christmas in the Portland School District. And in her school, they had replaced the Christmas program with a program where they worshiped the return of Lucifer. And the children that put on the winter solstice play, they had barcodes on their forehead. Some of them had acceptable barcodes on their forehead, and some had unacceptable barcodes. But they did an occult ritual and celebrated the return of Lucifer, the father of light. So
It's all going off in the schools, isn't it? It's all going off.
Yeah, exactly. And so to turn a blind eye and say, because some people accuse me of, oh, well, this is just your imagination that these things it has nothing to do with me. This is what's going on over there in London. It's going on over here in Portland, and it's been going on for 30 years. Yeah.
And they get to the children. I mean, in this particular book, this woman's hands were cut off, and she had the stumps with the bone coming out, and the blood was splattering all over the children. My son had to read that and do an essay on it. I was really angry. When I complained to them, they said, "Oh, what's wrong with your son that he doesn't like it? That it upset him? Oh, might there be something wrong with him?" I said, "Hang on now." So there was nothing wrong with him. I said, "It's me. I'm upset." And then she ignored my email. So what can I do? Make a fuss and then get sort of in the end they turn it round that there's something wrong with you to complain because nobody else is complaining.
Right. That's why I don't believe that people should put their children in the public schools anymore.
I agree. It's bad. It's bad. And also when my son was, it's as well as reading that book in English, he's going to a science class where they're cutting up a sheep's heart. And the next thing they did, the lungs of a lamb. And he said the classroom, you could smell the blood and smell the organ. He said, "Mummy, it was really bad." And then he's going on to his religious class and they're doing why Jesus, the fallacy of Jesus, his miracles, how he didn't really do any miracles. The bit where he stilled the water in the boat with the disciples. No, the disciples fell asleep. The bit where he, did the loaves and the fishes. No, not everybody wanted to eat that. So, he didn't make it any bigger. It's really, it's amazing. It's almost like a school of Satan.
Yeah.
Satan is really sexy. Satan's sexy, and you can get special powers by Satan. Just let him come inside you. And if you want to kill your family, that doesn't matter because they're boring, and Jesus is boring, and everything to do with it is boring. What's sexy, what's exciting is Satan. And of course, it's turning these young kids onto them. I've got my son, and I can tell him how it's, they're crazy. I can give him that. But there's other kids, there's one or two kids. He said, "Mummy, they're lapping up those Darren Shan books." This other kid has moved on ahead to Tunnel of Blood. There's another one, King Demon, and these young boys, they're lapping them up,
Yeah. While we're talking about books, can I get in a plug for my website?
Yeah, and I wanted to mention your book, Ezekiel. Is that available, and what's that about, very quickly?
Oh, well, it's Ezekiel 6:3, and it's called An In-House Directory for Christians on Spiritual Warfare. But to pull down the altars and high places. But what I did was I kind of, my different books, like the Bloodlines of the Illuminati book is the Who, and the Be Wise as Serpents is the What, and then my books on the mind control were How. Well, this was the When and the Where. So I give all of these places where they do rituals around the United States, hundreds of places. I give hundreds of addresses of these witchcraft covens. I give all these places where they do the programming for the mind control. So the ritual sites, so I'm giving the when and the where,
I think we're cutting out Fritz. You can reach Fritz on Facebook, please, and then go to his website. Fritz, I think we're going to leave. Thank you so much for coming on the show. You're a star.